Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship Endeavour, watching the massive space station grow larger on the screen. Nexus Prime was the biggest structure he had ever seen. It housed the Galactic Coalition headquarters and millions of beings from 12 different alien species. For humans, it was supposed to represent hope and progress. For Jake, it had become a symbol of frustration. 15 years had passed since humans first made contact with alien life. 15 long years of being treated like children at the adults' table. Jake remembered the excitement when Earth received that first message from space. People danced in the streets. Scientists wept with joy. Politicians promised a golden age of peace and prosperity among the stars. What they got instead was a slow, grinding humiliation that never seemed to end. Jake walked through the corridors of Nexus, Prime toward the Coalition meeting hall. Other beings moved past him without acknowledgement. The tall, blue-skinned Valfarians looked down at him with barely hidden contempt. Their leader, High Counselor Zexthul, had made it clear many times that he considered humans to be amusing. Pets at best, the aquatic depth swimmers were worse. They traveled in water-filled suits that made gurgling sounds when they moved. Last week, one of them had called humans primitive land crawlers right to Jake's face. When he tried to respond, the alien had simply laughed and swum away in its suit. And there were the architects. These crystal beings claimed to be the oldest species in the galaxy. They refused to believe that carbon-based life could think properly. To them, humans were just smart animals who had accidentally learned to build spaceships. Jake entered the meeting hall and took his seat in the back corner. The human section consisted of 3 chairs in the worst spot in the room. He could barely see the main speaking platform from there. This was intentional, of course. Everything the Coalition did to humans was intentional. Today's meeting was about trade routes. For the past 5 years, human merchant ships had been restricted to the worst shipping lanes in the galaxy. These routes took twice as long and passed through dangerous asteroid fields. When human representatives asked for better routes, they were told that newer Coalition members had to earn their privileges. High Counselor Zixthul stood at the main platform. He was 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that changed color when he was angry. Right now, it was a calm blue, which meant he was feeling superior to everyone else in the room. The Coalition has decided to grant the Nexari Republic access to the Centauri Express route, he announced. This will improve their trade efficiency by 40%. Jake felt his jaw tighten. The Nexari had joined the Coalition only 2 years ago. Humans had been requesting access to that same route for over a decade. He raised his hand to speak. Zexthul's skin shifted to a slightly darker blue. He had noticed Jake, but chose to ignore him. This was another familiar pattern. Human representatives were allowed to attend meetings, but were rarely permitted to speak. Are there any questions from senior Coalition members? Zexthul asked. Several aliens raised various appendages. The counselor acknowledged each one in turn. Jake kept his hand raised, hoping to be recognized. After 20 minutes of discussion, Zexthul finally looked in his direction. Yes, Human Morrison, you have something to add? The way he said, Human Morrison, made it sound like an insult. Jake stood up slowly. Every eye in the room turned toward him. Most showed either boredom or mild annoyance. Respected Counselor, Humanity, formally requests consideration for improved trade route access. We have been reliable Coalition members for 15 years. Our shipping records show perfect safety ratings and on-time delivery percentages above galactic average. Zexthul's skin shifted to a pale green, which Jake had learned meant amusement. Several depth swimmers made their gurgling laugh sound. The architect delegation remained silent, but their crystal bodies flashed in patterns that Jake knew indicated dismissive humor. Human Morrison, your species still has much to learn about galactic commerce. Perhaps in another decade, when you have proven your commitment to Coalition values, we can revisit this request. Jake felt heat rising in his chest. Another decade. Always another decade. Always more waiting, more proving, more begging for basic respect. Counselor, with respect, what specific actions would demonstrate our commitment? We have followed every Coalition directive. We have paid every tax and fee. We have provided military support when requested. What more do you require? The room fell silent. Several aliens shifted uncomfortably. Challenging a High Counselor directly was considered extremely rude in Coalition culture. Jake didn't care anymore. Sexthal's skin darkened to deep purple. This was anger mixed with surprise. Humans weren't supposed to push back. Human Morrison, your tone is inappropriate. The Coalition will decide when your species is ready for expanded privileges. Until then, you will accept our decisions with proper gratitude. Jake opened his mouth to respond, but a hand touched his shoulder. Dr. Lisa Parker, Earth's chief representative, had moved up behind him. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes that had grown tired over the years. Thank you, Counselor. Zexthil, she said calmly. Captain Morrison was simply expressing humanity's continued enthusiasm for greater participation in Coalition activities. We appreciate your guidance and patience. Jake wanted to keep arguing, but Lisa's grip on his shoulder tightened. She was right. Pushing further would only make things worse. He sat down, feeling angry and helpless. The meeting continued for another hour. Jake watched as every other species received something they wanted. New mining rights, expanded territories, technological exchanges, favorable loan terms. Everything was given freely to everyone except humans. After the meeting ended, Lisa and Jake walked back toward the human diplomatic quarters. These were located in the station's oldest section, where the air recyclers worked poorly and the gravity generators sometimes failed. You can't keep doing that, Jake, Lisa said as they walked. Direct confrontation only makes them more determined to keep us down. So what do you suggest, Doctor? That we just keep smiling and saying thank you while they treat us like garbage? Lisa stopped walking and turned to face him. Her tired eyes showed the strain of 15 years, fighting a losing battle. I suggest we document everything and keep sending reports to Earth. President Hayes needs to know what's really happening here. The people back home still think diplomacy will work. Will it work? Lisa was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. I don't know anymore, Jake. I really don't know. They reached the human quarters and went their separate ways. Jake entered his small room and sat at his desk. Outside his window, he could see the vast expanse of space and the distant glow of various alien homeworlds. Somewhere out there was Earth, beautiful blue Earth. Trusting that their representatives were making progress, Jake opened his computer and began typing his daily report. He wrote about the trade route rejection and the casual dismissal of human concerns. He wrote about the laughter and the contempt. He wrote about species with only 2 years of Coalition membership, receiving privileges that humans had been denied for 15 years. But he also wrote something else, something that had been growing in his mind for months. Mr. President, he typed, I believe it is time to consider whether continued Coalition membership serves humanity's interests. Today's meeting provided further evidence that we will never be accepted as equals, regardless of our contributions or behavior. The Coalition views us as permanent junior partners at best. I recommend that Earth begin developing contingency plans for a future outside Coalition authority. Jake stared at the words on his screen for several minutes. Once he sent this report, there would be no taking it back. Earth's leadership would have to start making hard decisions about humanity's future. He thought about High Counselor Zexthal's purple skin and dismissive tone. He thought about the depth swimmers' mocking laughter. He thought about 15 years of being treated like beggars in their own galaxy. Jake hit the send button. 3 days later, Jake received a coded message from Earth. President Hayes had read his report and wanted more detailed information about coalition military capabilities, trade dependencies, and political weaknesses. The message was signed with unusual formality, suggesting that other people had been involved in drafting it. Jake understood what this meant. Earth was no longer planning for diplomatic success. Earth was planning for the possibility of failure. He began his new assignment immediately, carefully documenting every detail of coalition operations. He paid attention to patrol schedules, defensive positions, supply routes, and communication protocols. Dr. Parker helped without being asked, using her scientific access to gather technical data. Neither of them spoke about what they were doing. They both understood that their real job had changed. They were no longer diplomats trying to improve human standing in the coalition. They were intelligence agents preparing for the day when diplomacy finally failed. Commander Helen Brooks was drinking coffee in her captain's chair when the emergency signal came through. The red light on her communication panel started flashing, which meant only one thing. Someone was in serious trouble. The Defiance was a small human patrol ship with a crew of 40 people. Helen had been commanding her for 3 years, mostly doing boring security runs along the outer edge of human space. Today was supposed to be another quiet day of checking shipping lanes and filing reports. "Commander, we're receiving a distress call from New Haven Colony," said Lieutenant Pete Collins from the communication station. His voice was tight with worry. Helen set down her coffee cup. New Haven was home to 50,000 human colonists. It was one of their most successful settlements, with farms that fed 6 other human worlds. The colonists had been there for 12 years and had never caused any problems. "What's the nature of the emergency, Pete?" "Ma'am, they're saying Veltharian ships have arrived and are demanding immediate evacuation of all human residents. The colonists are asking for help." Helen felt her stomach drop. The Veltharians were the most powerful species in the coalition, and they rarely bothered with formal notifications when they wanted something. If they were at New Haven, it meant the coalition had already decided the colony's fate. "Get me Colony Administrator Ben Carter on the main screen." The view screen flickered and showed a middle-aged man with graying hair and frightened eyes. Behind him, Helen could see people running past carrying suitcases and children. The sound of crying and shouting filled the background. "Commander Brooks, thank God you answered. We need immediate assistance. 3 Veltharian warships arrived 2 hours ago. They're ordering us to evacuate within 6 hours. They say this world has been reassigned for Veltharian use." Helen had been expecting something like this for months. The coalition had been making noise about optimizing resource distribution and improving species placement efficiency. It was fancy language that meant moving humans out of any place the aliens wanted. "Ben, have they provided any official documentation?" "Evacuation orders should come through proper coalition channels. They gave us a data pad with some kind of authorization, but it's all in Veltharian script. We can't read it, and they won't provide a translation." "Commander, they're not being gentle about this. They've got soldiers going door to door forcing families out. My daughter saw them drag the Johnson family from their house when they tried to pack more belongings." Helen felt anger rising in her chest. The Johnsons were elderly farmers who had worked their land for over a decade. The idea of soldiers dragging them from their home made her want to punch something. "Ben, I need you to stay calm and keep your people organized. How long do you need for a proper evacuation?" "At least 3 days, Commander. We've got livestock, equipment, and personal belongings. People have built their whole lives here. 6 hours isn't enough time to save anything meaningful." Helen looked at her tactical display. The Defiance was 40 minutes away from New Haven at maximum speed. 3 Veltharian warships meant she would be outgunned by at least 10 to 1. Her ship carried defensive weapons only, barely enough to fight off pirates. Pete, get me Coalition Command immediately. Yes, ma'am. The Coalition Command Center appeared on screen. The duty officer was a bored-looking depth swimmer whose water suit made gurgling sounds. This is Commander Brooks of the human vessel Defiance. I'm requesting immediate clarification on the situation at New Haven Colony. Human civilians are being forcibly evacuated without proper notice or documentation. The depth swimmer's suit bubbled for a moment before he responded. Human Commander, this is an internal administrative matter. Veltharian forces are conducting authorized relocation procedures. You are ordered to maintain your current patrol route. Officer, human civilians are being mistreated. I'm requesting permission to provide assistance with the evacuation. Negative, Human Commander. Coalition forces do not require assistance from junior member vessels. Maintain your patrol route and do not interfere with authorized operations. The screen went dark. Helen stared at it for several seconds, feeling her heart pound with rage. Authorized operations. They were treating the forced removal of 50,000 people like it was routine paperwork. Commander, Pete said quietly, I'm getting more transmissions from New Haven. The situation is getting worse. Put it through. This time the voice belonged to Dr. Susan Mitchell, the colony's chief medical officer. She sounded exhausted and frightened. Commander Brooks, we have injured people here. The Veltharian soldiers are using pain weapons on anyone who moves too slowly. We've got 3 people in critical condition, and they won't let me set up a proper medical station. They say wounded humans can receive treatment after evacuation. How bad are the injuries, Susan? Bad, Commander. Real bad, little Amy Chun got hit with one of their neural disruptors when she tried to run back to get her stuffed animal. She's been unconscious for an hour, and I don't have the equipment here to help her properly. Helen closed her eyes. Amy Chun was 8 years old. Her parents ran the colony's main agricultural center. Helen had met the family during a routine inspection visit last year. Amy had shown her a drawing of human and alien children playing together under a bright sun. Susan, I need you to document everything. Record the injuries, take pictures, get witness statements. Make sure there's a complete record of what's happening. I'm trying, Commander, but they keep moving us. They won't let us stay in one place long enough to properly treat people or gather our belongings. Helen made a decision that would change her life forever. Navigation. Plot a course for New Haven. Maximum speed. Lieutenant Collins turned around in his chair. Commander, Coalition Command ordered us to maintain patrol route. If we go to New Haven, we'll be disobeying direct orders. I heard their orders, Pete. I also heard crying children and injured civilians. Plot the course. Yes, ma'am. The Defiance changed direction and accelerated toward New Haven. Helen knew she was risking her career and possibly her freedom. Coalition military. Law was very clear about disobeying orders. But she also knew she couldn't sit in space drinking coffee while human families were being brutalized. 35 minutes later, New Haven appeared on their screens. Helen could see the 3 Veltharian warships in orbit around the planet. They were massive vessels, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy her ship with a single shot. On the planet's surface, she could see the lights of the colony and several transport ships loading evacuees. Communications. Open a channel to the Veltharian fleet. Channel open, ma'am. Veltharian vessels. This is Commander Helen Brooks of the human ship Defiance. I'm requesting permission to assist with civilian evacuation procedures. The response came quickly. The Veltharian captain's voice was cold and mechanical through the translation system. Human vessel, you are not authorized to be in this system. Depart immediately, or face the consequences. Valtharian Captain, I'm offering assistance with humanitarian operations. My ship has medical facilities and can help treat injured civilians. Human vessel, there are no injured civilians. Relocation is proceeding according to plan. Depart now. Helen looked at her tactical screen. The Valtharian ships had powered up their weapons and were turning to face her. She was completely outmatched. But 50,000 humans were counting on someone to stand up for them. Tactical, raise shields and prepare defensive systems. Ma'am, if we fight them, we'll be destroyed in minutes. I'm not planning to fight them, Lieutenant. I'm planning to buy time. Helen opened a channel to the colony. Ben, this is Commander Brooks. I'm here and I'm not leaving. Tell your people to take whatever time they need for a proper evacuation. Commander, the Valtharians are demanding you leave immediately. They're threatening to fire on your ship. Let them threaten. The Defiance stays until every human is safely off that planet. For 6 hours, Helen played a deadly game. She positioned her ship between the Valtharian fleet and the evacuation transports. Every time the aliens tried to rush the humans, she moved the Defiance into their path. The Valtharians could have destroyed her ship easily, but doing so would have created a diplomatic incident that even the Coalition couldn't ignore. During those 6 hours, Helen watched her career end. Coalition Command sent increasingly angry messages ordering her to withdraw. The Valtharian captain made multiple threats. Even President Hayes sent a coded transmission telling her to disengage before the situation escalated. Helen ignored them all. She watched the evacuation transports fill with families and their belongings. She listened to Dr. Mitchell's reports about treating the injured. Most importantly, she made sure that little Amy Chun received proper medical care before being loaded. Onto a transport ship. When the last human finally left New Haven's surface, Helen felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The colony that had taken 12 years to build was abandoned in less than a day. 50,000 people had lost their homes because aliens wanted their land. Commander, Pete said quietly, Coalition security is demanding we report to Nexus Prime immediately. You're being charged with mutiny and violation of Coalition military law. Helen looked at the empty planet below them. The Valtharians were already sending down their own people to claim the farms and cities the humans had built. Dr. Lisa Parker walked through the halls of the Coalition headquarters for the last time. Her bags were packed and her official resignation letter had been delivered to High Counselor Zek Still's office. After 15 years of representing humanity in the galaxy's most important political center, she was going home. Other alien beings moved past her without acknowledgement, just as they had for over a decade. The difference was that Lisa no longer cared about their opinions. The New Haven incident had changed everything. Humanity was done asking for permission to exist with dignity. Captain Jake Morrison met her at the transport dock. His face showed the same mixture of relief and determination that Lisa felt. They had both spent too many years being polite to beings who viewed them as inferior. Any last words for the Coalition? Jake asked as they boarded the human transport ship. I said everything I needed to say in my resignation letter, Lisa replied. I told them exactly what I thought about their definition of civilization. The transport ship lifted off from Nexus Prime and began its journey toward Earth. Lisa watched the massive space station shrink in the view screen. Somewhere in that structure, alien leaders were probably laughing about humanity's emotional response to the New Haven situation. They had no idea what was really happening. During the 2-week journey home, Lisa and Jake compiled everything they had learned about Coalition operations. Military schedules, trade routes, technological capabilities, political relationships between species. For years, they had gathered this information as part of their diplomatic duties. Now it would serve a very different purpose. Earth looked beautiful, as their ship approached the home system. Lisa had forgotten how blue the oceans were and how white the clouds looked against the atmosphere. After 15 years of living on alien space stations, she had missed the simple beauty of her own world. President Hayes met them personally at the orbital station. He was a tall man with gray hair and the kind of serious expression that Lisa had learned to associate with difficult decisions. The president had been in office for 8 years, and Lisa had watched him grow increasingly frustrated with coalition policies. "Dr. Parker, Captain Morrison, welcome home," the president said. "I've read your preliminary reports. We need to talk immediately." They traveled down to Earth's surface and went directly to a secure facility outside Washington. Lisa had never been inside a military intelligence building before. The rooms were filled with screens, maps, and people in uniform who looked like they hadn't slept in days. Admiral Rick Stone was waiting for them. Lisa knew him by reputation as Earth's most decorated military officer. He was a short, stocky man with intelligent eyes and hands that moved constantly while he talked. She had heard that he didn't trust politicians, but he had apparently decided to trust President Hayes. "Dr. Parker, your intelligence reports have been extremely valuable," Admiral Stone said. "We've been able to confirm most of your observations through our own sources. The coalition is even more vulnerable than we thought." Lisa felt surprised. "Admiral, I wasn't aware that Earth had intelligence sources in coalition space." President Hayes smiled grimly. "Lisa, there are a lot of things about Earth's capabilities that we haven't shared with the coalition. For good reasons, as it turns out." Admiral Stone activated a large wall screen that showed a star map of coalition territory. Red dots marked military installations. Blue dots showed major trade routes, and yellow dots indicated important political centers. For the past 10 years, we've been quietly mapping every aspect of coalition operations, Admiral Stone explained. "We have people in positions throughout their territory. Not spies exactly, but humans who work for alien companies, serve on alien ships, and maintain alien equipment. They've been sending us information about everything they see." Lisa stared at the map. The level of detail was incredible. Every major coalition world was marked with detailed information about defenses, population, and strategic importance. "Admiral, this represents years of work. When did Earth decide to begin intelligence gathering on this scale?" "About 3 years after we joined the coalition," President Hayes answered. "It became clear that the aliens weren't interested in treating us as equals. We needed to understand what we were really dealing with." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "Sir, are you saying that Earth has been preparing for conflict with the coalition for over a decade?" "Not preparing for conflict, Captain. Preparing for independence. There's a difference." Admiral Stone pressed a button, and the star map changed. Now it showed human territory, but with many more locations marked than Lisa had expected. Red dots indicated military installations that she had never heard of. "Dr. Parker, how many ships do you think Earth has?" Lisa thought about it. "The official reports say 12 ships in the Earth Defense Force, plus maybe 30 civilian vessels capable of military conversion." "Official reports," Admiral Stone repeated. "Dr. Parker, what you're looking at is Earth's real military capability." The map now showed over 200 red dots in human space. Each one represented a military installation or hidden shipyard. Lisa felt her mouth fall open. "Admiral, where did all of these facilities come from?" "We built them," Admiral Stone said simply. "For 15 years, while the coalition was treating us like children, we were building a real military force. Every asteroid mining operation, every research station, every deep space facility has been part of the plan." President Hayes stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Lisa could see the lights of Washington and the normal activities of a peaceful world. It was hard to believe that this same world had been secretly preparing for war. Lisa, the coalition, made a critical mistake, the president said. They assumed that because we were polite and cooperative, we were also weak and helpless. They never bothered to find out what we were really capable of. Dr. Gary Walsh entered the room carrying a data pad. Lisa recognized him as Earth's leading weapons researcher. He was a thin man with nervous energy who spoke very quickly when he was excited. Dr. Parker, Captain Morrison, I want to show you something that will change your understanding of human technology. He activated another screen that showed technical diagrams of weapons and defensive systems. Lisa had studied alien technology for years, but these designs were completely unfamiliar. For the past decade, we've been developing military technology based on principles that no other species has explored, Dr. Walsh explained. While the coalition focused on energy weapons and shield systems, we took a completely different approach. What kind of approach? Jake asked. Quantum manipulation weapons, kinetic bombardment systems, and electromagnetic warfare capabilities. We've essentially created a new category of military technology. Lisa studied the diagrams. The weapons looked unlike anything she had seen in coalition space. Dr. Walsh, have these systems been tested? Extensively. We've been testing them in secret for 5 years. The results exceed our most optimistic projections. Admiral Stone returned to the star map. Dr. Parker, the coalition has approximately 3,000 military vessels spread across their territory. They assume this gives them overwhelming superiority over any single member species, doesn't it? Lisa asked. Not if that species has been preparing for 15 years and has developed superior technology, Admiral Stone replied. Numbers don't matter if your weapons can't effectively engage the enemy. President Hayes returned to his seat. Lisa, Jake, we brought you here to ask for your help with the final phase of preparation. We need detailed intelligence about coalition, command structures, communication systems, and decision-making processes. Lisa felt a mixture of excitement and fear. Mr. President, are you saying that Earth is planning to leave the coalition? I'm saying that Earth is planning to become independent, whether the coalition likes it or not. The question is whether we can do it peacefully or whether they'll force us to demonstrate our capabilities. Jake leaned back in his chair. Sir, what about the other coalition species? Some of them might be reasonable. Captain, we've been monitoring coalition communications since the New Haven incident, Admiral Stone said. The response has been exactly what we expected. They're not concerned about human anger. They're not planning to change their policies. They're planning to teach us a lesson about knowing our place. Dr. Walsh nodded eagerly. The coalition leadership is convinced that humanity will eventually calm down and accept their authority. They think we're just having an emotional outburst. Are we? Lisa asked. President Hayes smiled for the first time since she had arrived. Dr. Parker, humanity is done having emotional outbursts. We're going to have a conversation with the coalition leadership, and we're going to make sure they understand exactly what we're saying. Over the next several days, Lisa and Jake worked with Earth's intelligence services to create detailed profiles of every important coalition leader. They identified decision-makers, power structures, and communication networks. They analyzed the relationships between different alien species and looked for potential weaknesses. The work was exhausting, but also liberating. For the first time in 15 years, Lisa felt like she was working towards something positive instead of just enduring insults and disappointments. On their final day at the intelligence facility, Admiral Stone showed them one more thing. The coalition fleet appeared at the edge of human space, like a storm cloud blocking out the stars. Admiral Rick Stone watched them arrive from the bridge of his flagship, the Liberty. 2,000 alien ships stretched across space in perfect formation, representing the combined military might of 11 species. Stone was a small man, who had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. He stood calmly with his hands behind his back, studying the enemy formation on his tactical display. His staff officers waited quietly for orders, but Stone was in no hurry. He had been planning this battle for over a decade. Communications. "Are we receiving any transmissions from the Coalition fleet?" Stone asked. "Yes, sir," replied Lieutenant Carroll Davis. "The Coalition commander is demanding our immediate surrender. He says we have 10 minutes to respond before they open fire." Stone smiled slightly. "Put him through." The main screen flickered and showed Grand Admiral Vexmore, the Coalition's supreme military commander. He was a massive Veltharian with 4 arms and skin that shifted between purple and red when he was angry. Right now, his skin was deep red. "Human Admiral, you have committed acts of rebellion against lawful Coalition authority. Surrender your fleet immediately and prepare to face justice for your crimes." Stone looked at the alien commander with calm eyes. "Grand Admiral, humanity formally rejects Coalition authority over human space and human citizens. We are no longer members of your organization. Foolish human, you cannot simply leave the Coalition. No species has ever been permitted to withdraw. Membership, you will surrender now or face the consequences." Stone gestured to his tactical officer. The human fleet began moving into formation around the Coalition ships. What had appeared to be empty space suddenly filled with human vessels appearing from nowhere. Grand Admiral Vexmore's skin shifted to a pale yellow, which Stone knew indicated surprise and confusion. The Coalition had expected to face, maybe, 50 human ships. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by over 300. "Human Admiral, explain how you have so many vessels." "Our intelligence reports indicated minimal human military capability." "Your intelligence was wrong, Grand Admiral. Humanity has been preparing for independence for many years. We tried diplomacy first, but your people made it clear it was pointless." Stone nodded to his communications officer. Throughout human space, similar conversations were taking place as hidden human fleets revealed themselves near every major Coalition installation. "Grand Admiral, you have one opportunity to withdraw your forces and recognize human independence. If you choose to fight, you will discover that humanity is no longer the weak species you remember." Vexmore's skin darkened to deep purple. "Human fool, we outnumber you 6 to 1. Your primitive ships cannot match Coalition technology. Surrender now or watch your entire species burn." Stone sighed. "Grand Admiral, you've had 17 years to learn who we really are. Today, school is in session." The Coalition attack began exactly as Stone had predicted. Vexmore ordered his ships to advance in the standard Coalition formation, energy weapons charging and shields at full power. It was the same tactical approach they had used successfully for centuries against dozens of other species. Response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Sue Martinez commanded the human destroyer, relentless from the center of the Coalition formation. Her ship had appeared there without warning, using stealth technology that made it invisible until the moment of attack. "Target the Coalition command ship," Martinez ordered. "Fire quantum torpedoes." The weapons that struck Vexmore's flagship didn't behave like normal energy weapons. Instead of hitting the shields and creating the usual light show, they passed right through the defensive barriers as if they didn't exist. The torpedoes struck the hull and caused the massive ships' gravity generators to fail. What kind of weapon was that? Vexmore demanded, as his bridge crew struggled to restore artificial gravity. His science officer, a crystalline architect, flashed in patterns that indicated confusion and fear. "Grand Admiral, the human weapons appear to operate on quantum principles. We don't understand. They're bypassing our shields by existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously." Throughout the battle zone, human ships demonstrated capabilities that seemed to violate the laws of physics. They appeared and disappeared at will. Their weapons passed through coalition defenses without being affected. Their ships moved in. Perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. The coalition had superior numbers, but numbers meant nothing when their weapons couldn't hit their targets and their shields couldn't stop enemy attacks. Commander Helen Brooks, now flying a human fighter called the Vengeance, led a squadron attack against a group of depth swimmer vessels. The aquatic aliens had always mocked human capabilities, calling them primitive land crawlers. "This is for New Haven," Brooks said. As her weapons locked onto the lead depth swimmer ship, the kinetic projectiles from her guns traveled at incredible speed and struck with devastating force. The depth swimmer ship's shields flickered and failed under the assault. The hull cracked and began leaking the water atmosphere that the aliens needed to survive. Similar scenes played out across the entire battle zone. Human weapons technology, developed in secret for over a decade, proved to be generations ahead of coalition systems. Where the aliens had focused on incremental improvements to energy weapons, humans had revolutionized the fundamental principles of warfare. Dr. Gary Walsh watched the battle from Earth's orbital command center. His quantum manipulation weapons were performing even better than his computer models had predicted. Coalition ships were being disabled without being destroyed, exactly as planned. "President Hayes, our weapons are working perfectly," Walsh reported. "We're neutralizing coalition ships faster than they can respond to our attacks." President Hayes nodded grimly. "Doctor, what are our casualty figures?" "Minimal, sir. The coalition can't effectively target our ships. We're losing maybe one vessel for every 50 of theirs." The tide of battle turned completely in humanity's favor within 2 hours. Grand Admiral Vexmore found himself commanding a fleet that was being systematically destroyed by an enemy they couldn't understand or counter. "All ships retreat to safe distance," Vexmore ordered. "We need to regroup and analyze human capabilities." But Admiral Stone wasn't interested in letting the coalition fleet escape to fight another day. Human ships appeared around the retreating aliens, cutting off their escape routes. "Grand Admiral, this is Admiral Stone. Your fleet is completely surrounded. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to galactic law." Vexmore's skin had turned completely white, which indicated shock and disbelief. In over a century of military service, he had never seen a battle turn so completely against coalition forces. "Human Admiral, how is this possible? Your species was barely capable of spaceflight 20 years ago. Grand Admiral, you made the mistake of confusing politeness with weakness. Humanity spent 15 years being diplomatic, while secretly preparing for the day when diplomacy failed." The coalition commander looked at his tactical display. Over half of his fleet was disabled or destroyed. The remaining ships were trapped and couldn't fight effectively against human technology. "Admiral Stone, what are your terms for surrender?" "Complete withdrawal from human space, recognition of human independence, and reparations for 15 years of exploitation and abuse. Your choice is surrender or total destruction." Vexmore closed his eyes. His entire career had been built on coalition superiority over all other species. The idea that humans, the weakest coalition members, could defeat the combined might of 11 alien civilizations was impossible to accept. "We surrender," he said quietly. The coalition surrender was broadcast throughout the galaxy within hours. Every alien world received the same message. Humanity was no longer asking for respect. They had taken it by force. Captain Jake Morrison, now serving as Admiral Stone's intelligence officer, monitored alien communications as news of the defeat spread. The reaction was exactly what Earth's leadership had predicted. "Admiral, we're receiving diplomatic communications from 6 coalition species," Morrison reported. "They're all requesting separate peace negotiations with Earth." Stone smiled. It's amazing how quickly aliens discover their respect for human rights when they realize we can defend ourselves. The Battle of Terra's Edge lasted 4 hours and changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Coalition, which had dominated galactic politics for over 1,000 years, had been defeated by a species they had considered barely civilized. But the real message wasn't about human military superiority. The real message was about the consequences of treating any species as inferior. The Coalition had pushed humanity to the breaking point, and when human patience finally ran out, the results reshaped the entire galaxy. Admiral Stone looked at the disabled Coalition fleet floating in space around his ships. Somewhere among those vessels were the same aliens who had laughed at human requests for equal treatment and basic dignity. Communications. Send a message to all Coalition worlds, Stone ordered. Tell them that humanity is willing to discuss peaceful coexistence with any species that recognizes our right to exist as equals. But make it clear that the days of human submission to alien authority are over forever. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Terra's Edge, and Dr. Lisa Parker barely recognized the galaxy she now lived in. She stood in her new office on Unity Station, the galactic government headquarters that had replaced the old Coalition. Center on Nexus Prime. Through her window, she could see ships from dozens of species coming and going in peaceful cooperation. Lisa was now Earth's Secretary of Interspecies Relations, a position that didn't exist before humanity's victory over the Coalition. Her job was to help manage the new galactic order that had emerged from the ashes of the old system. The changes had been dramatic and swift. Within months of the Coalition's surrender, 3 species had declared independence and requested human protection. The Cathari were a peaceful farming people who had been exploited by the Veltharians for centuries. The Omari were skilled engineers whose technology had been stolen by the depth swimmers. The small Tessek Republic had been forced to give up most of their territory to feed the Coalition's expansion. All of them had watched humanity defeat the most powerful military force in the galaxy and decided they wanted the same freedom. President Hayes, now serving his 3rd term, had made it clear that Earth wouldn't become a new version of the old Coalition. Humanity offered protection and partnership, not domination. Species that wanted independence could have it. Species that wanted to join a new alliance based on equality could do that too. The result was the Galactic Federation, with Earth as its reluctant capital. 37 species had joined in the first year alone. Lisa's assistant, a young Cathari named Veltar, entered her office carrying a datapad. The Cathari looked like tall, thin humans with silver skin and large eyes. They had been slaves under Coalition rule, but now they served as equals in the Federation government. Secretary Parker, the morning briefing materials are ready, Veltar said in perfect English. Learning human languages had become fashionable throughout the galaxy. After humanity's victory, Lisa smiled at her assistant. Thank you, Veltar. Any urgent issues today? The Veltharian delegation is requesting another meeting about reparation payments. They claim the current schedule is too difficult for their economy. Lisa felt a familiar flash of anger. The Veltharians, who had once treated humans like pets, were now complaining about paying for the damage they had caused. High Counselor Zexthil had been removed from power by his own people after the military defeat, but the new Veltharian government still had trouble accepting their reduced status. Schedule the meeting for this afternoon, Lisa said, and make sure Admiral Stone is available to attend. Admiral Stone had become something of a legend throughout the galaxy. His name was spoken with respect by allies and fear by former Coalition leaders. The simple fact that he might attend a diplomatic meeting was usually enough to make difficult negotiations much more cooperative. Lisa reviewed her daily schedule while walking to the Federation Council chamber. As Secretary of Interspecies Relations, she spent most of her time mediating disputes and helping new species adjust to life in the Federation. It was challenging work, but infinitely more satisfying than her old job of begging for basic human rights. The council chamber was impressive, with seating for representatives from all Federation species. The design was open and democratic, very different from the old Coalition Hall, where humans had been relegated to the back corner. Captain Jake Morrison, now serving as Director of Federation Intelligence, was waiting for her with his daily briefing. Jake's job was to monitor threats to Federation security and watch for signs that the old Coalition might try to regain power. "Good morning, Lisa," Jake said. "I have updates on 3 developing situations. What's the most important one?" "The depth swimmers are attempting to form a military alliance with the remaining Coalition species. Our intelligence suggests they're planning to challenge Federation authority in the Outer Rim territories." Lisa sighed. The depth swimmers had never accepted their defeat gracefully. They continued to refer to humans as primitive land crawlers, and claimed that the Battle of Terra's Edge had been won through luck rather than superior technology. "Jake, what's Admiral Stone's assessment of their military capabilities?" "The Admiral believes they pose no serious threat to Federation forces, but he's concerned about the message it sends to other species. If we allow the depth swimmers to challenge us without consequences, other former Coalition members might decide to try the same thing." Lisa nodded. The Federation's strength came from its reputation as much as its military power. Species throughout the galaxy had joined the Federation partly because they believed humanity could protect them from their former oppressors. "Schedule a meeting with the Admiral for later today. We need to discuss our response options." The morning session of the Federation Council dealt with routine matters: trade agreements, resource allocation, scientific cooperation projects, and cultural exchange programs. Lisa found it remarkable how much smoother galactic politics had become when all species were treated as equals. The Cathari representative reported on the success of their agricultural program. With human protection and Federation technology, they were now producing enough food to feed not only their own people but several other member species. The Omari delegate presented plans for a new, faster-than-light communication system that would connect all Federation worlds. Under Coalition rule, their engineers had been forced to work on projects that only benefited the dominant species. Now they were free to pursue innovations that helped everyone, even the Tessek Republic, the smallest Federation member, had contributions to make. Their unique understanding of asteroid mining had helped develop new techniques that were being shared throughout Federation space. During the lunch break, Lisa met with Commander Helen Brooks, who now served as head of the Federation Peacekeeping Force. Brooks had become a hero throughout human space after her stand at New Haven, and her reputation had only grown during the war with the Coalition. "Helen, how are the former Coalition worlds adapting to the new reality?" Brooks smiled grimly. "Most of them are cooperating, but there are still problems. The Veltharians keep testing our boundaries, seeing how much they can get away with. The depth swimmers are openly hostile. The architects claim they're too evolved to follow human leadership. Any serious threats?" "Nothing we can't handle, but I'm worried about the long-term situation. Some of these species spent thousands of years believing they were superior to everyone else. That kind of thinking doesn't change overnight." Lisa understood the concern. The Federation had won the war, but winning the peace would take much longer. That afternoon, Lisa attended the meeting with the Veltharian delegation. The new Veltharian leader was a female named Kalanara, who had risen to power by promising her people that she could negotiate better terms with the Federation. "Secretary Parker, the reparation payments are destroying our economy," Kalanara said. "My people are suffering because of decisions made by the previous government." Lisa looked at the Veltharian leader with cold eyes. "Counselor Kalanara, your people supported the Coalition's oppression of humanity for 15 years. The New Haven incident where human civilians were brutalized by Valtharian soldiers, happened because your species believed we were inferior. That was the past, Secretary Parker. We must focus on the future. Admiral Stone, who had been sitting quietly, finally spoke. Counselor, the Federation's terms are extremely generous, considering the damage your species caused. You're paying reparations over 50 years, instead of having your military completely dismantled. Many human leaders wanted much harsher punishment. Kalinara's skin shifted to pale blue, indicating nervousness. Even 5 years after the war, Valtharians were still afraid of Admiral Stone. Admiral Stone, we understand the Federation's position, but surely some accommodation can be made. The terms are final, Stone said simply. Your species will honor the agreement or face the consequences. The meeting ended with the Valtharians agreeing to continue their payments on schedule. Lisa watched them leave, knowing they would be back with similar complaints in a few months. Later that evening, Lisa walked through the residential section of Unity Station. The area housed families from dozens of species, all living together. In peace, human children played with Githari youngsters. Omari engineers worked alongside human scientists. Tessek artists created sculptures that celebrated the diversity of Federation culture. It was exactly the kind of galaxy that Lisa had dreamed of during those frustrating years on Nexus Prime. She stopped at a small memorial that had been built to honor the victims of Coalition oppression. At the center was a statue of little Amy Chun, the 8-year-old girl who had died during the New Haven evacuation. The inscription read, "No species will ever forget the moment when humans finally exhausted their patience." Dr. Gary Walsh approached the memorial from the other direction. He was now the Federation's chief scientific advisor, overseeing research projects that benefited all member species. "Evening, Lisa," Gary said, "visiting Amy?" "I come here whenever I have a difficult day dealing with former Coalition species." Lisa replied, "It reminds me why we fought. Do you think we've achieved what we set out to do?" Lisa looked around at the peaceful station, filled with beings from across the galaxy, working together as equals.